Hello, fellow book lovers, both readers and writers. I am Maddie Dalrymple. I write the Ann Kinner suspense novels and suspense shorts and the Lizzie Ballard thrillers, and I also write, speak, podcast, and consult on the writing craft and the publishing voyage as the indie author. And this is my video series, What I Learned, where I ask authors two questions related to their latest book. What did they learn from that book that they would like to share with their fellow writers? And what did they learn that they would like to share with their fellow readers? And I am joined today by Kathleen Donnelly. Hey, Kathleen, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I am excited to have you here and to give our viewers a little bit of background on you. Award winning author Kathleen Donnelly has been a handler for the Sherlock Hounds Detection Canines, a Colorado based narcotics canine company since 2005. This is going to be right up my alley. She loves crafting realism into her fictional stories from her dog handling experience, and her debut novel, Chasing Justice, won a Best Book Award from the American Book Fest, a PenCraft Award for Romantic Suspense, and was a 2023 Silver Falchion finalist in the Suspense category and the Reader's Choice Award. She lives near the Colorado foothills with her husband and her four-legged coworkers, and her latest book is Killer Secrets. So today I am asking Kathleen the two What I Learned questions about Killer Secrets, starting with what did you learn that you would like to share with your fellow writers?
Thank you again for having me here today. Killer Secrets is my third book. And I just thought I'd give a quick background on it where an avalanche rips down a mountainside and reveals a serial killer's dumping ground. And my protagonist is a U.S. Forest Service law enforcement officer and canine handler. And this is her lovely canine Juniper here on the cover. And together they're going to solve the crime. This is my third book published, but one thing I've learned is technically it's my fifth book. When I started out writing the first two books, I queried, they didn't get any takes, no interest in them at all. And I just kept working at it. And I think as I head towards this third book coming out, I realized that you just have to sit down and just keep going, just keep writing. And you hear that a lot, but I felt like this book really clicked this time. Like everything kind of came together. I had a process I felt confident about. I had worked with my editor. Now this is the third book with her. And so I knew her well enough to be more confident about asking questions. I felt like I did a better job of developing the main plot and storylines. And I also thought my editor pushed me in a really good way to develop the B plots as well, to make them as interesting and as tension filled as the main plot. So that was a lot of fun. That was definitely something I learned on this book. And I also felt like with this one, I learned to weave in the past story better. And I was watching some of your videos on your YouTube channel, Maddie, and there's authors with 20, 23 books out there. And I think, wow, it's fun to hear what they've learned at that point in their process. So I think for me, I just learned that you just keep going. Each book teaches you something different. I learned that lesson working dogs, that each dog teaches you something different as a handler. And I think each book that I write really teaches me something different.
That's very cool. Is Juniper based on an actual dog that you work with?
I've never personally handled a Malinois. My dogs are labs because we go into schools and they find drugs, alcohol, and gunpowder in schools. So we wanted a non intimidating dog.
Yeah.
But our trainers have all had Malinois, and I've been around them as they prepare them for law enforcement. So our dogs are what you call single purpose. They just do one job. They just work narcotics. Whereas a police dog like Juniper is going to work multiple jobs. They're going to track, they're going to find narcotics, they're going to find evidence, they're going to apprehend, they're going to do all these different things. And so it was fun over the years just watching these dogs be trained. And most of them were Malinois. Our trainers had a few German Shepherds, a few Dutch Shepherds, a couple Black Giant Schnauzers, but most of them were Malinois. And whenever I was around the Malinois, I was struck by their intensity, their love of work, but they also all kind of have this sense of humor. They think they're pretty funny and they can give the handler a hard time. And so I thought this will be a fun dog to put into the books and bring out. And actually, in Killer Secrets, I have a new dog as well, a yellow lab. So I had to bring in a lab somehow.
I'm a lab person. We have two labs. We have a black lab and a yellow lab, so I'm partial to them. Are your dogs your personal dogs labs?
So the dogs I have are the Sherlock Hounds dogs, and I have a black lab Boomer and a yellow lab Willow.
Oh, nice.
And they are so much fun, and they live with me, even though they're the working dogs, they live with me, and a lot of times they'll hang out with me and write. I call them my co-authors, and if anyone signs up for my newsletter, there's always a little section I call the lab report where they get to have their say because I think they want that.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, one of the greatest accessories a writer can have, especially for social media, is a dog because you can't really go wrong with dog or cat pictures. Any kind of pet, I think, is always a useful thing.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm curious, do you ever a lot of authors are asked, "Do you imagine who would play such and such a character in if they made a TV series or a movie of your book?" Do you ever think about a human being who would be like the human equivalent of a dog character you have in one of your books?
Oh, I love coming up with ideas. I mean, as far as my characters, I have ideas. I'm really bad with actor and actress names. So I'm always like, oh, the person who played this. I believe one actor I really like who could play the lead male role in my books is Justin Hartley. He's on Tracker right now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he would be great. But as far as Juniper, the dog, I recently watched the movie called Dog with Channing Tatum. And they had, I think, 3 Malinois total when I watched the credits. Of course, just playing one dog, one character, and I thought, "Well, there you go, they're set. They can make my books into a TV show now because there's 3 Malinois that acted exactly like my dog, and they're ready to go." And they even have the white spot on their chest that I always say she has, so
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll pave the way to the movie deal because the producers will know that there's an actor or actresses in the wings that can do that.
That's right. If Channing Tatum's watching this, we're ready.
Yeah, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about some of the things you learned that you'd like to share with your fellow writers. How about your fellow readers? What did you learn from Killer Secrets that you would like to share with your fellow readers?
This was a fun one to write because the research was a lot of fun. I live here in the Colorado mountains. I grew up hiking in the mountains. I wanted them to almost be their own character. The mountains have their own personality, so to speak. They can be dangerous, they can be beautiful. I mean, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature does. So I had a lot of fun with this one because I felt like I brought in the mountains more as a character with the avalanches. And right now, in fact, we have from January and through now, we just had a big snowstorm. Avalanche season's high. Berthoud Pass gets closed a lot. The road gets snowed in. Big avalanches come down that area. And I thought, what if the mountains literally could be like a character that helped bring this killer to justice by an avalanche being triggered and revealing the dumping grounds of a serial killer's, all the bodies. So I thought that'd be kind of fun to make them their own character. Like the mountains decided to say, "Hey, here's the information you need to solve this crime."
Yeah.
That also, yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And the other thing, I think, as a canine handler, everyone says, "Oh, you know everything about canines." But they do so many different jobs, and each time, each different dog you work, it's not always the same thing. And so I reached out to a friend who handles human remain detection dogs, and I learned a lot about them, or cadaver dogs.
Mhm.
People call them that. And so I learned a lot about how they worked, how they work out in the wilderness, even little tidbits like an avalanche is going to rip up, boulders and trees and the landscape. And that's actually going to change the scent for the dogs. It might bring it out more. It might, things like that. So it was really fun. It was just really fun to dig in and learn some new things like that.
Do you encounter descriptions of working dogs in law enforcement where people get something wrong? Like, can someone who's fleeing from the dogs really cross a creek and then walk down the creek a little ways and go out the other side and have the dogs not be able to follow them?
No, that is a total myth. I always joke that every time Hollywood does that, they just make our jobs easier. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because they can actually track just fine through water. In fact, there's even cadaver dogs or the human remains dogs that are certified to find victims who have drowned in lakes and rivers. And they literally hang off the side of a boat. They have their noses hanging over. And when they smell an odor, they'll alert, and they have it set up where the dog will smell like 3 different, the kinda pinpoint a scent cone. They can send divers down and quite often find the victim. So they can smell through water just fine.
And do the dogs, when they're just starting being trained, is there a particular goal, like they're going to be a cadaver dog or they're going to be a search dog or a tracking dog or whatever the options are, and they're trained to that? Or do trainers look for a dog who shows a particular skill in a certain area? How does that work?
That's a great question. It really comes down to the agency and what they want that dog to do. So, for example, because we work in schools, not only are our dogs non intimidating, we need them to we allow the kids to go ahead and pet our dogs. I work with the kids on please ask first, because in real life, well, I shouldn't say in real life, it is real life, but if they see a working dog, a police dog, you can't just go up and pet them. But we do allow the kids to pet the dogs. And so I have to make sure that along with the right characteristics, like a high retrieve drive, handling slick floor surfaces, being willing to get up on things, this is all part of the test. I think every time I test out a dog at a rescue or humane society, the trainers are just like, "No, we've been working on them not jumping up."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm encouraging them to do it because they need to be able to, put their paws up on a table or anything like that and check where they need to. So, but I also make sure for our dogs that they're going to be really safe around kids. I do a lot of um, things that I slowly lead up to it. I don't just scare the dog, but I'll like grab them because sometimes kids will just grab a dog and hug them, even though that's like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Our dogs have to put up with that versus like a police dog, like Juniper, like this kind of a working dog. They are still looking for a high retrieve drive and a high prey drive, and the dog can't be bothered by different environments. They have to stay very focused. But these dual purpose dogs, they're going to train them to bite or apprehend. And so a lot of times the dogs actually are very good with people, and you can pet them if you ask, if they're off duty and they can give them a command. But those dogs also are gonna protect their handler, so if they deem someone a threat, they're gonna bite, so it's just a whole different ballgame, and then you have everything in between, like the bomb dogs that might be labs, they might be dual purpose dogs, so it's just really comes down to the agency and what job that dog is meant to do.
Yeah. That's so interesting, and I'm fascinated by the idea of having these dogs be, characters in their own right, but the setting be a character in its own right. That's a really a compelling group of characters there, combining the dogs, the humans, and the environment they're working in.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I hope the readers find it as fun to read as I had writing it because it was like I said, I almost felt like the mountains were this personality and bringing them alive, and then the dogs as well, and then, of course, the human characters too.
Yeah. Well, Kathleen, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing some background on Killer Secrets with us, and please let the viewers know where they can go to find out more about you and everything you do online.
Sure. So the best place to start is my website, KathleenDonnelly.com. And on the website, there's a newsletter you can sign up for. When you do that, you can download a free ebook called Working Tales. And it's all the little short stories I've started collecting about working the dogs over 19 years. This is my 19th year of doing this. So I have a lot of little short stories. They can download that. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the
Okay.
links are there on the website, all the buy links for the books. I do a monthly newsletter that comes out at the end of every month. There's even a contact page, so if someone wants to email me with a question or something, I'm always happy to try to get back to someone.
Great. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
That was wonderful talking with you too. Thank you again for having me.
My pleasure.